Good evening and welcome to another episode of The Addict's Advocate. I'm your host, Dusty Dean, and it is my pleasure to introduce Jeff. I met Jeff through the power of TikTok, and Jeff goes by Sober AF Jeff, and I love the hook, the handle. So nonetheless, anyway, welcome and thanks for spending some time this evening with me.
Yeah, good to be here.
Good. Like I always do with every new guest, go ahead and give us your backstory. How did you recognize that you had an addiction, and what did you do to make the switch to sobriety?
Yeah, so I started drinking kind of in high school, and I think it was almost like it kind of started at like a binge pace then. And then I went to the University of Alabama. So as a lot of people know, it's a big football school, big sports school. Parties come along with football. So yeah, it was throughout college, just a lot of parties, like freshman year, I wanted to do the fraternity thing, and I got pinned. So I don't know if many of you know, but so pinning is just like, hey, you can pledge this fraternity, and they celebrate, they pour beer all over you, and then ended up getting a public intox that night. So that was my first run-in with the law, and because of that, my parents wouldn't let me do a fraternity. So, anyways, just continued drinking through there, and then after college, just kind of continued the college party life. And I'm 35 now, and I kind of never grew out of that phase. And a lot of my friends were me and my friends were kind of on the same level, to a degree. So it's, again, every Saturday when Alabama's playing, it was kind of like we were back in college. But throughout that time after college, I had two of my best friends pass away. One was an overdose for heroin, which I wasn't aware, or I maybe was naive or anything, but I didn't know he was even doing it. So that really hit me. And then a year later, I wouldn't say almost to the date, but very close to that date, my other best friend passed away, and his was in his sleep. I think they said it was like an enlarged heart, or something. But he did kind of have his own battles as well. So not to say it was kind of an overdose or anything like that, but I know there was a lot at play there. So those just kind of got me going, heavier and heavier since those, because again, those are like my best friends. Like a lot of my pictures are them two on my sides. So kind of just started drinking heavier and heavier from there. And since from those deaths, I got a lot of anxiety, and so my anxiety was really getting worse and worse. Panic attacks started happening. My very first panic attack, I didn't know what it was. So I went to the doctor thinking I was having a heart attack. And that kind of started my in and out of doctors being like, I'm wanting to correct this anxiety thing. But on my own, alcohol was the quickest way to cure my anxiety. And so it was like I would get anxious, drink until I could pass out or fall asleep, wake up anxious from drinking, and kind of do that cycle every day. And that cycle got earlier and earlier, up until the point where I was putting bourbon in my coffee. So it was just a lot. The anxiety just got worse and worse. And again, my cure was drinking, and I was getting different SSRIs, different milligrams, trying to find anything to fix it. And it ended up, we'll probably get to it, but it ended up drinking was probably the biggest cause of my anxiety. So again, just the anxiety just had my drinking increase and earlier into the day. And it became from 4 days a week, 5 days a week, to literally every day of the week. And I think just the last straw. So I was in a 3-year relationship. We lived together in Atlanta, and I had the ring. Everything was ready to go. But kind of throughout that relationship, alcohol was a big topic. Whether it was, you acted a fool at this wedding, or why do you need 3 old fashions tonight? It's a Monday. Those kind of conversations. And I, of course, would get defensive, being like, I have anxiety. You don't understand how this is. Like, I need this to go to sleep. And then just a lot of arguments. I mean, there were other factors, but a lot of it, the common denominator was alcohol. So yeah, she gave me many chances. There were times where I would go, like, to please her, I would take a month off, or I would quit for a while. I think the month was about as long as I went, and I celebrated by drinking. So I went a month, and I was like, I deserve a drink. I'm sure that's not the first time you've heard that, but anyways, long story short, she ended up leaving me. Again, I had the ring, and it was kind of just a conversation of she fell out of love. There was a lot of lying, a lot of hiding. So again, I was hiding my drinking from her near the end. Once I kind of knew she thought I had an issue with it, I basically just started drinking behind her back. And again, hiding where it was. She went to the office. I worked remotely, which again is another kind of easy way to kind of get out of hand. It's very easy to drink during the job when you're working remotely. So yeah, it got to a point where I was ordering alcohol while she was at work because they can deliver now. And I would drink what she knew we had, and then I'd fill it up with the stuff I ordered, and it was, I mean, it got worse and worse. I was spending a ton of money. Um, so yeah, the kind of rock bottom was when she left me and kind of kicked me out. I had to move home with my parents. I basically it was her house, so I had nowhere to go. Um, and kind of from that point forward, I was like, I wanted to get help. At first, I wanted to get help to show her that I could do it for her, or like that I can get sober. I want this to work, and that never really worked. I went to AA for the first time when I moved back, and kind of just continued drinking. I think the hiding of it got worse just because, again, I was with my parents. So now I was going to AA, stopping liquor store on the way home, and drinking in my room. And it just kind of got bad. And then again, since I was at home, the final rock bottom, I basically went and got a hotel. Told them I was going to a friend's house. Went and got a hotel for a night. That ended up being 3 nights, and I basically just drank for 3 days straight. DoorDash and alcohol, basically 24 hours a day. And that final day, like, I wasn't answering calls. I would text my brother, like, because again, I was getting blown up because obviously my parents didn't know where I was. So I text my brother, basically just like, tell mom I'm all right. Like, basically I didn't want her to come where I was or have the cops come, anything like that. So then on like the fourth day, I came home and just broke down. I was like, I need help. And that day was January 10th, and I haven't had a drink since that day.
Awesome.
That's kind of that's there's a lot to that story. A few rock bottoms, but yeah, here I am.
Dude, that's awesome. Lots to unpack.
Yeah.
One of the things that you had spoken about, which was something that I had to come to terms with when I was in my inpatient treatment, was addressing grief that I haven't let it manifest through my body, right? With all those stages of it. And I think that that's an important reality is, if you don't, the body talks to you, right? When you don't do these things that you're supposed to do. You had spoken about obviously anxiety, panic attacks, and I've found that especially true. Like if I don't address something, my body, because it's all connected, right? It'll come at you, and yeah, you're right. Is that what's interesting is that you were going to something to cure your anxiety, and you end up realizing that, oh shit, this might be causing my anxiety, and unfortunately, I have somebody in my life that likes to use, well, maybe it can be both and. It doesn't need to be either or, right? It can be both. It can be something that was creeping into your life, and the stars aligned that, hey, you already knew it was a remedy to some extent before you even started dealing with the grief, right? But yeah, from the point of, I think that last moment, right, was that it was, I need help, not I'm going to go get clean for someone else, right? You're like, I need help. I'm done. I wave my white flag. I concede. And because I get it, brother, I've been there. I'm a little bit over 400 days now myself. And I felt that this was a good thing to do, was just keep the communication up, build a sober community, and keep, you know, helping each other with, perspectives in life. Making sure that we're not white knuckling the sobriety thing. We're embracing it. It's actually been a good thing in our lives. It does help us become the best version of ourselves. But it's not to say that all those tendencies, all those urges, the disorder itself isn't there barking at you, and especially if there's other things in your life that's a cause of it, right? Maybe some of it is biochemical, right? It compounds it. But I appreciate the share, man. How did your family receive you when you said, "Hey, I need help"?
Yeah. So like when I moved back after the breakup, I basically told her I was like, I'm going to tell my parents everything. And one of those was like my drinking. So they were aware um, that I at least mentioned that I had an issue or I thought I had an issue. And they're super supportive of it. And I remember even prior to those days, my mom would remind me that alcoholism is in my family. I don't know exactly. It was a grandmother's father, I believe. I can't remember exactly who, but it's always been mentioned. Because again, there were times when there'd be family holidays and I'd take it a little too far, and like she'd kind of throw those little like, remember, it's in our family, like let's not get crazy. Yeah, they've been super supportive ever since that day. She actually took me to my first AA meeting when I came back, which again was kind of, I may have missed a few spots, but basically, yeah, it was her and my ex kind of like, let's get them to a meeting. But since then, yeah, they've been extremely supportive, and I'm super grateful for that.
Awesome. Now give me post decision, and then how did you feel the first 90 days? What was that like for you?
Yeah, I'm incredibly glad I've kind of gone this far down this Friday. Like today, I think is day 267. Which looking back, I remember being like, I don't know if I can go shit a day. And it was really tough. Like the first 90 days. I mean, the first like say 2 weeks, 15 days, obviously is some of the hardest with the withdrawals and things like that. I did not do detox or rehab. I do not recommend doing that. I I don't think I understood how dangerous detoxing is from alcohol until after the fact, which I'm kind of, in one way, I'm happy I didn't know that because I think I would have caused a lot more stress on my body, knowing like, oh, I could die. But also, I kind of wish I knew that to where did go take a medical detox. Again, luckily, I made it through. Nothing too crazy happened. But again, I do not recommend doing it without at least the advice from a doctor. But I would obviously say I would recommend detox. But yeah, it was just a lot of my biggest things. Obviously, was just a lot of panic, a lot of anxiety. Shakes were real bad. I mean, there were a few days I remember I was eating dinner with my parents and like bringing the water glass up to my mouth. Like it freaked me out because all of a sudden I was like, what the hell was that? And it was really hard to focus at work. I remember my vision was blurry. I looked at a computer all day. So at that point, I was like, well, maybe it's just me staring at a computer. But yeah, so I'd say the first 15 days were probably the toughest as far as like physically. And then I think, I think the biggest turning point for me when I was like, wow, I really do feel a lot better. And this is, so I, again, was in AA. I got a sponsor. I was doing the 12 steps, and I think, and I don't know if, anyways, I'll just go. So the fourth and fifth step were basically the biggest mental change for me when I was kind of able to get that inventory done and kind of get it out of my brain. Because again, it's very easy to let things just fester in your brain. And there were things that were not helping me sleep at night. And I think that was the biggest kind of light bulb moment when I was like, this really does like improve your mental health. And then in turn your physical health. So I think, yeah, that fourth and fifth step really made it to where I was like, I think I can do this. I can see the changes. I can feel the changes.
So that was the first 90. Cravings, urges, better now, the same. What are your triggers?
Yeah, I think I kind of like to say like the craving's not there anymore to drink. I think the thoughts still pop up in my head, whether it's just a nice sunny Saturday, especially with fall coming up, like it's patio season. That was always like around here, the weekends where go to a brewery, watch football, and just kind of hang out outside. So I think it's those random thoughts of, man, it feels really nice out. It'd be good to go outside and have a drink. But then you kind of think about it, you're like, why do I have to have a drink? You can still go outside. So again, it's a lot easier to shut that thought down. But again, I don't really have any moment where I'm like, I could really use a drink, or this drink's going to help me right now. So I think I can't tell you when in these almost 9 months that happened. Yeah, I think I can honestly say for me that the craving's gone. But again, those thoughts still cross my mind, whether it's I see the brewery or I see a liquor store, like it's still like I can just shut them down a lot quicker now. As far as triggers, I don't know. Like there hasn't been, again, in recent months, there hasn't been a ton of things that like kind of hit me where I like, ooh, I could use a drink right now. But like, and I kind of talked with my buddies from in the rooms. It's almost easier to be around like excessive drinking because you're kind of reminded of why you quit. You're like, that used to be me. I hate that. But it's like we talk about like it's the chill event, like a baby shower, like where people are just sipping a mimosa. You're like this seems like I could do that. So I think, yeah, I think there's not a ton of triggers anymore, but I think it's just the ideas that just kind of pop up around certain events that kind of, again, are just easier to let go of, versus probably the first couple months.
Yeah. That's a good analogy. I agree with you. It's like, yeah, put me around a room of drunks and I'll be totally fine. But
Yeah,
don't give me the Sunday brunch with mimosas
yeah,
and such. I'm like, cause yeah, that makes you go, oh, I can be a responsible drunk. Oh no, wait, no, I can't. Duh.
yeah,
That's how I got here in the first place, right? Um,
exactly.
so on that note, then, do you think that it is an issue with self will or self control? Or do you think that it's truly a disorder, a disease that is cunning, baffling, and powerful, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, in my opinion, I mean, I do think it is a disease. I mean, because it truly is like affecting your brain. It kind of you're rewiring your brain, and your brain starts to learn like, hey, when you're feeling bad, this helps, and this being alcohol, it's a quick fix, and us as humans love a quick fix. So I think with it being physical and mental, and I mean, like by definition, I feel like that is a disease, and if left untreated, I mean, death is possible. So yeah, I think in my mind it is a disease, and it's like self will plays a part in it, but it's not as simple as just when someone says, "Why don't you just quit?" You're just like, "Trust me, I would." So yeah, it's like I think self will plays a part in it. It definitely plays a part in trying to keep you not sober. That's for sure.
Um, okay, so the inverse. What is it about sobriety that you thought was a myth that you just basically heard before you got sober and realized that that's just completely off basis? You know, being on this side of the equation. What, what's
Yeah,
what?
I think. I think like being living a sober life is a boring life. Um, I mean, that was the biggest. That probably scared me the most because I mean, your whole lifestyle is around drinking up to that point. I mean, if you think you have an issue, your lifestyle is likely drinking. Let's face it, the first couple months when you are trying to kind of get over that hump, it is pretty boring, and it's especially compared to what you were doing before that. So like I can't lie and say it's not boring early on, but I think kind of once you get in the flow of things and kind of get past that craving, you can do whatever you can do what you've been doing. Just remove the alcohol. You can go to concerts, you can go to sporting events, you can go to your friend's house. I mean, again, there's certain situations you'll learn like maybe I shouldn't go to this, but you're basically anything you did prior you can do post uh not drinking. You just don't have to have a drink in your hand. Obviously that it takes a while to get comfortable doing that. Like I went to my first wedding, it was my brother's wedding, post sobriety, or yeah, after getting sober. And it was like the rehearsal dinner was at a winery, so that was so right when I walk in, they have the girl with the dish of glasses. And they were my brother let them know like I don't drink. So they once the lady kind of saw me and she started handing me sparkling water. So like even having the glass in hand felt fine. I know some people like wine was never my thing, champagne was never my thing. Like it was alcohol, so like I would drink it on a Sunday, but it was never like my DOC. So I know that can be a trigger, just the glass, but yeah, for me that wasn't the case. So it was just nice to have something in my hand. But anyways, yeah, I think the biggest myth for me was just that sober life is boring. I think someone said it the other day. It was like, if me not getting hammered and acting like a fool at night is boring, then call me boring. Like I'll take it. So I think that was the first myth that kind of came to mind to me, and kind of what scared me to get sober because it's like, well, what am I going to do if I can't drink? It's kind of your first thought.
Yeah, it just goes to show what a stronghold it has in your life, right? And everything is centered around it, right? You're basically planning your day around it, and it's so occupying, right? It's just of all your resources, mental, physical, time, monetary. It's just
And it's so normalized, which it's still crazy to
yeah,
think about. But it's like when you are trying to make plans post sobriety, it's like everything you think of like is usually around drinking. So I mean, it takes a while to kind of find your thing and like what you want to do. But again, there's nothing that you could do while drinking that you can't do while not drinking.
yeah. Well, and in most cases, doing it sober is way safer.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
You can drive at 2 a.m. and go get an ice cream if
Yeah. Yeah. And just have to worry about all the others out there that are doing what you used to do.
also true.
Yeah. So at least you'll be on point. You'll be alert and you'll have that wisdom.
Yeah.
Um, three biggest mistakes that would lead someone to relapse now that you've been sober for this long. What do you think? What do you think tricks people into slipping? Even if it's a slip, even if it's just like
Yeah.
a drink or two one night.
Yeah, I think like for me early on, and again, controversial, but like I had a lot of relapses early on, but like a lot of guys in the room were like, can't really call it a relapse if you didn't actually quit. And I was like, all right, touche. AK, I was just like saying I was sober for a month, but did I drink during that? But anyways, yeah, early on, I think it was trying to jump back into your normal life again, immediately. So like early on, my friends were aware I wasn't drinking, but I would like first month I was still going to my friend's house and watching football games on Saturdays and like wanted to make sure they acted normal. AK kept drinking around me, and I could keep it together there. I don't I looking back, it was like I feel like I didn't really even crave it. But like the second I left, it was on my mind, and I stopped at the liquor store and got a bottle. And I kind of did that for a few weekends until I was finally like, I can't be normal, at least for a small amount of time. Like I need to like focus on this. And then I can go back to my friends. So I think early on, a big mistake is just immediately trying to go back to how you were living and just say, I'm just not going to drink doing it. Again, that could be different for other people, but for me, I really wanted to be normal. And like you just, for me, I just couldn't for a few months. So, but I think now, I think the biggest thing that can kind of trigger a relapse is like there have been moments in my sobriety now, again, almost 9 months, where I'm like, I got this. Or like I think I can, like I have control of this. I could have a drink if I wanted to. Like I don't want one, but I could. I think that's the biggest possible kind of thought process of relapsing, is just kind of, I don't know if it's complacent, getting comfortable in your sobriety, thinking you have it, thinking you've graduated, basically. And I think that's what meetings are good for. At least for me, it's been great to just kind of be reminded that 9.99999 out of 10, it's not the case. None of us can go back to drinking moderately. And there's a lot of people in the room that will say they went 10 years and had that thought, had a beer, and then they drank for the next 3 years, and now they're back in the rooms. So I think, yeah, I think the complacency and like the I've conquered it thought is probably the biggest thing that can cause a relapse. I know you said three, but now I'm trying to think of a third one.
Yeah, you gave me a lot of meat to work with there. I appreciate it. We can talk about some of that because yeah, you've changed things in your life in becoming sober. So you got to go home and you got to change things in that life. And a lot of people say, don't take the same route to work, to and from work. Change your furniture around in your house, move pictures, change pictures. Start implementing changes just because it's, at least in that regard, something that lets you go that, hey, I've closed that chapter in my life. I'm starting a new one, right? That's, I think, very important. The other thing that you kind of touched on is, yeah, our mind can play tricks on us for sure, without a doubt. And this disease will humble you quickly. Before you know it, you're sitting there going, what just happened, right? Um, and you also, suggested that, yes, we need to stay grounded, right? How do we stay grounded in our sobriety? To me, it's simple. And that's why this was a simple thing for me was that I needed to stay connected with sober people, meetings, friendships. Obviously, social media has provided an avenue for that because it's always therapeutic, always. And we're always looking for great innovative minds when it comes to sobriety, man. If somebody's got a better way to do this, we're all ears.
Yeah.
So hey, so tell me about your channel. Tell me about what's going on there. Tell me what all platforms you're on. Tell me about Sober AF.
Yeah. So I basically have had TikTok for a while, and post breakup, kind of near the end of my breakup, I kind of deleted all my socials. So I didn't really have any social media after and kind of going into the sobriety thing. Um, it got me in trouble. It just caused my brain to think about other things, stuff like that. So basically I went no social media. But then kind of after kind of getting sober for a little bit, like I just downloaded TikTok just to pass time. Just kind of was scrolling, and I'd started playing golf a lot. Golf was always big for me, but it was a big drinking sport, so I kind of stayed away for it for a little while, but then kind of got back into it. And my brother actually, well, let me start over. So my Instagram and my TikTok, those are my two channels that I go through. The handle's Sober AF Jeff, which could be alcohol free or AF. It's up to you how you want to spin it.
There we go. I love it.
Yeah. So originally my brother has a TikTok and he posts a lot of golf stuff, and he started kind of getting a following. He started kind of getting people like sending him products and things like that. So it kind of just piqued my interest, like what could I do? So I started doing some golf videos. I'm not good at golf, so like my play was like, are you shitty at golf? Me too. And then kind of the sobriety journey started, and I think my very first post around sobriety was just like me working out, and it was kind of like it was like day, it might have been a month or something. And I got a lot of good feedback for it, a lot of comments, like support, or I'm on this journey too, or I want to get sober, some DMs, things like that. And I kind of went from there, and it just kind of slowly kind of grew, and I kind of from that point I started more or less posting for like accountability. So I kind of started like, this is my story, like saying day 36, day 37 AF. And this was before I changed my name. So I think my name was Three Putt Paymal, which if that tells you anything, well, that's my last name. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but it's Three Putt. Basically that tells you anything about my golf game. Yeah, then I started just then strictly posting about sobriety, small wins, struggles, things like that. And again, I've gained a lot of friends through it. A lot of people that are kind of in the same journey, whether they're just starting or years ahead of me. It's been nice to kind of converse with people via social media. There's a lot of people that I've reached out that want to quit that can't, and kind of ask some questions like how'd you do it, things like that. So it's been really rewarding, and it's kind of gone off from there. So I tried to, again, it's good accountability, like going to meetings and you kind of make friends, or like someone said, like familiar faces at meetings help a lot, and whether you're a familiar face to someone or not, you are. And I think that hearing that kind of like, if you do slip or you do relapse, it's like you don't, or you're thinking about it, you don't want to let down those people in that room. So then kind of similar with my social media, like I've gone so far now, if I mess up, like am I gonna have to post 0 days AF on my social media account? Like I don't want to do that. I would, but I don't want to do that. So yeah, I think again it's just really good to kind of meet more people in the community outside of your town. Obviously, it's great meeting people in person, and sometimes you meet friends via social media that you can meet in person down the road. So yeah, I think it's just been really good for me, kind of knowing I'm not alone, helping other people know they're not alone, and just kind of getting that support and giving that support.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, bud. Accountability is huge. And yeah, and at the same time, I want to be cautious that I'm not living my sober life in fear either, right? And it's we know that we've let people down in the past, and so I think we have to, in our sobrieties, get back to again self love, self worth. This taking care of ourselves, right? And that taking care of ourselves means that we don't drink anymore, right? That's what we're doing. Just
And
like a
I think
diabetic would. Go ahead.
sorry, I was gonna say, like, it's because a lot of the times, like myself and probably most people before they get help, is you're struggling in silence. So I think it's kind of good to, as some people say, recover out loud. For those people that are struggling in silence, it's kind of like kind of showing vulnerability, caring what other people think. Like, it's similar to like people that are vegan. Like they always say, like, you don't have to, like, how many people are vegan and don't post about it? It's kind of the same thing. It's like, I think a lot of people that are sober or struggling with sobriety don't talk about it. And I think seeing other people talk about it, they're like, oh, like, I guess I'm not alone. And like, it's not as crazy as I always pictured. Like walking into AA, I mean, your only experiences of AA are through movies, and you're like, there's gonna be all these crazy people. But you walk in, you're like, it looks like it's like a day at church. Like people are just normal looking businessmen and women. I've met people that I've known and earlier on in life, and you're kind of like, hey, and it's like you think it'd be awkward, but you're kind of just both like, got me too. So yeah, it's just it's
Yeah, I agree with you. I've found that that's been one of the biggest myths that were squashed for me is that I'm not dealing with, when I went into detox, it was like, I'm not dealing with people mumbling to themselves and, strung out in a corner. It's like the horrors of it, if you will. And I've met some of the most caring, empathetic, smart people that are dealing with this. This has been great, bud. I kind of want to give you an opportunity that if you have any parting words of wisdom, any gems that really just resonate with you, like when you get up every morning, it's a mantra, or what is it that's binding you to this run of sobriety that you're basically telling me, you're done, right? You recognize that you're not at that point where you're going to cure yourself and then you can go back to moderate drinking. That one's out the window. I've tried that too. It didn't work. I
Yeah,
think I tried it a
yeah,
couple times. Yeah.
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 That's that. The thought has crossed my mind, but again, I think that's why it's good to kind of go to meetings and hear those attempts, and that person is obviously back in the room. And but again, I think a big thing that a lot of people like to say is like, I don't know the exact quote. It was something around like, I have another drink in me, but I don't know if I have another recovery in me.
Mm.
It's something along that quote, but that one really sticks with me because it is like, you've worked really hard. I mean, it's really hard just to get 30 days, let alone 200, 400. And just the thought of having to start over and do everything that you've done up to this point just sounds awful. And like you just have to remind yourself, like, remember how terrible you felt on day 0 or day -1 before you went 0. I'll never forget how I felt that day. But yeah, as far as just kind of what keeps me going, like, again, I wake up and pray, just keep me sober today. And when I go to sleep, I say thanks for keeping me sober. I think just staying in touch with your community, whether it's your sponsor or people you met in your rooms, family. I think it's good just to have that sober community around you and just have someone to talk to when you are struggling. Have someone to talk to when you are feeling great, and just I think it's been really good for me. I've made some close friends throughout this, and some golf buddies, and it's been cool to kind of just see that life is still just as fun, if not more fun, sober. So yeah, I think it's just been good. I think it helps just to kind of, like you said, stay grounded. And for me, that's going to meetings and just keeping in touch with people in the rooms.
I hear you, man. You brought up a couple of things. I guess we'll use as parting thoughts. Number one, that quote is an interesting quote, especially after learning what I learned from another guest of mine who is someone that I shared time with in detox. But there's this quote as far as what I have another drink in me, but I don't think I have another recovery. There's something called the kindling effect with alcoholism, with any sort of addiction. And what's happened to him, and he's a fairly young guy, but what's happened to him is that if he has like 1 or 2 beers and that's it, he'll wake up the next morning in massive withdrawal, in a massive, almost hungover withdrawal state, because the body's remembering. And he said that also when you're truly going through a detox, if you've relapsed so many times, this kindling effect is such that each detox becomes that much more dangerous. And so yeah, it's physically, it's trying on the body to a point, if you go through this so many times. And he's unfortunately is kind of dealt with it, but it's also made him tremendously smarter in his recovery. Just like I know what happens to myself physically if I go down this road, and I don't think I could survive it. So the other thing that you brought up, which again was one of the reasons why this kind of propagated my podcast, was just this notion of, you're not alone in the way that you're thinking and feeling. This disease is isolating, but I bet you get yourself 1, 2, 3 meetings tops, and you will have heard something that resonates truly with you about your disease and why others do get it. And it's kind of liberating. It is liberating just to know that you aren't alone, right? And or and or just in fear of, well, who am I going to be then associated with, right? This group that calls themselves alcoholics, calls themselves addicts, whatever. What does that group look like to me, and why do I have to be a part of that now, right? and it's all walks of life, but you aren't alone. People get it. People get you. You're not going to have that judgment side, and that's typically a lot of the reason why a lot of families are incapable of helping, because if they're not directly impacted with the alcoholism addiction of one way, shape, and form that they've seen in their lives, or just simply never dealt with it themselves. I think that's the biggest thing, is them having dealt with it themselves. They just don't get it. And so this is meant to be an educational format too for all of those that are ignorant about what addiction truly is. And I appreciate your time, Jeff. This has been excellent. And yeah, we'll make sure that I'm going to plug the heck out of your channel here over the next week or so. So
I
uh,
appreciate it.
yeah, definitely. And we'll do this again if you've got any good things that you want to bring up. And also, I do like to just have repeat guests just to touch base and say, hey, since we've talked, what's happened. This is a no judgment zone. I mean, some people say that relapse is part of recovery. Um, I know that I've relapsed prior to being in conscious recovery, if you will, right? Just thinking I could do it myself. Um, but yeah, this is no judgment here. You're gonna get nothing but love and support, and I appreciate what you're doing. You do have some very, very inspirational posts, and yeah, it's put one foot in front of the other, right? What they say, how do you eat an elephant? You eat an elephant one bite at a time. So, um, thank you, Jeff. You take care, okay, bud?
All right. Sounds good. I
Have a,
appreciate it.
thanks. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too.